When it comes to worldviews, the grass always seems to be greener on one's own side, doesn't it? So, the best we can do for all the people stuck on their territory is to provide a detached list of some attempts to deal with the inevitable increase in entropy and despair. Do we need a trigger warning? I hope not. You all know what you are getting into. And I think those who are prepared for some brutal honesty will find some hidden gems and entertaining perspectives that might cheer us up, at least a little bit. I mean, it has to, because these are the most popular and most committed attempts to deal with life, the universe, and everything. So let's see which one might be useful for us, starting at the bottom. In level F, we have physicalism. Some call it materialism, but that term is also used for those who like money, and sometimes for those who don't like money, so physicalism is probably a better term for a worldview that focuses on matter, energy, maybe information, and sometimes evolution. Some people are really into it, but don't be blinded by the apparent success of this worldview. No, there will be no confusion here, because the F stands for futile. All these scientists, with their cult of explanation, add up to less than you might expect. Of course, we get a lot of gadgets from them, and from time to time a new particle, or another still useless attempt at nuclear fusion. But in the end, nothing from this worldview manages to give us any meaning to life. On the contrary, it only confirms what we all felt deep down. Everything is going downhill. As space expands, we're becoming more and more alone. And while the heat death of the universe may sound cosy, it is actually a rather cold way of looking at things. That's why we need something to cheer us up. So we come to the next attempt to deal with all of this. In Tier C we find Christianity, and C here stands for committed. This is where things get much more interesting. Imagine being the punching bag of history, and then finally your chosen saviour Jesus shows up, giving inspirational speeches about how being moral is even harder than you thought. But he offers a solution. Instead of going through the eye of a needle, there's another option. If you're really enthusiastic about him, he'll make a deal with you, and you'll get a chance to praise him for all eternity. This supported the right mindset for some events that others might have found discouraging. After Jesus was convicted, tortured, and killed, Christians doubled down like nobody else ever did. They've turned torture devices into fashion statements and death into a minor inconvenience. There's definitely a lot to learn from Christianity. Which brings us to our next worldview, which would probably be best placed in level D for depressing, but has some potential. I will get to that, but first, let's look at what Buddhism is all about. On the plus side, they are honest about their suffering. Only their way out doesn't seem overwhelmingly effective and really exhausting. If it really worked that well, we would have more enlightened people floating around. Maybe that is a good thing. Too many enlightened beings would be really annoying. But Buddhism still has some hidden potential. It wouldn't have to be in level D. It could even make it to level B. If only it learnt a few things from Christianity. Imagine if these Buddhists borrowed some of Christianity's coping mechanisms and really leaned into Siddhartha's inglorious end. Imagine, instead of the boring obese man, there could be countless statues of Buddha in the middle of vomit, and a wide range of depictions of all the symptoms of food poisoning. Don't we all agree that it would make their tedious meditation exercises a little more entertaining? It would certainly make my day. But there is more to it. I think Buddha only reached enlightenment at the end of his life, and it was not really food poisoning that killed him, but he finally let out all his anger and disgust. Following that example, inward-looking Buddhism could be a lot more expressive, and maybe it would have saved Buddha's life. I mean, if he had just been a little more open and honest with himself, it would not have come out in such a violent way in the end. And what we can take away from this is not to just sit around like Buddha teaches, but to be a bit more expressive. There are certainly different ways. You don't have to express anger, sadness, fear or disgust by vomiting all over the place. But everyone can, of course, do what they like. But we have another perspective, which I would put even higher, maybe onto Tier A or even S, attractive to some, surprisingly effective to others. Although more of a cult than a religion or worldview, Dionysus, the god of ecstasy and madness, offers something special. Yes, you will say I am biased towards a horned god, but hear me out. Burned to death before birth, then born from his father's thigh, torn to pieces, and then reborn, this guy thrives on the chaos we're all trying to resist. What is his solution to depression and increasing entropy? Party harder. You can't worry about the heat death of the universe if you're too busy dancing, can you? When all else fails, go crazy. That deserves an extra point, even if this cult hasn't managed to formulate a coherent ontology. But then again, maybe that is their secret. Look at where the other worldviews ended up with their sophisticated concepts. But it is not what the cult of Dionysus lacks that makes it a candidate for Tier S. It is that it transcends all the other helpful attempts we have been talking about. Yes, clearly everything surpasses physicalism, but Dionysus not only doubles down on his troubled biography, he does so in a way that embraces the craziness of life, and in a more expressive way than our imaginary Buddhism. He gives himself over to madness and ecstasy, while still maintaining enough consistency to get through the day. So is he the real winner here? No, there is another. Do you want to know who it is? Well, let me tell you, it is all of us, because we managed to get through another 6 minutes, hopefully without vomiting, feeling tortured or being torn to pieces. Or have you? Then you can go through all the previous solutions. You can go to one of those doctors that physicalism is all about. You can pray for a better afterlife. Or you can be mindful of your suffering. Of course, all of this would be crazy because we have already determined the best solution. So let us put on some loud music and dance until we feel better or pass out.